You asked for it, and here it is. Part 2 of why I want to move to Malaysia. Reason number 1 is so I could wear my tropical outfits all the time. Okay, that's not really a reason. Is it though? Maybe I should show you my wardrobe. It's pretty much like all tropical clothing. Although I noticed that when I was in Malaysia, I was the only one wearing it. Oh well. So, reason number 1 today is going to be the clean city. So I guess this reason is kind of leaning towards Kuala Lumpur, and this is like a slight Kuala Lumpur versus Toronto comparison. And I'm talking about how clean and pristine Kuala Lumpur is, especially compared to Toronto or other major cities like New York City, which is basically like you're just living in a garbage dump, let's be honest. So Kuala Lumpur is really clean. I remember being on the streets and just being shocked at how clean the streets are, how fresh everything smelt, you know? You don't get dirty benches, dirty sidewalks, where if you come to Toronto, there's pretty much gum everywhere. We actually had this really horrible problem in my neighborhood. It's done now, but I think during the pandemic, everyone decided to get a dog, but no one wanted to learn how to take care of the dog properly. So anywhere you walked, there'd just be like dog poop, like everywhere. I'm not kidding. Like if you know how there's like squares on the sidewalk, it was like every second square had like dog poop in it. And this was like for 6 months. It was pretty crazy. I guess everyone got rid of their dogs now. Those poor dogs. But yeah, so that's an example of Toronto being dirty. I know some of you have seen a video of me like testing out my new camera settings in a local park, and you commented that, wow, the park is so clean. Yes, the park was clean. This is not a busy city park, and it is the beginning of the season on a very slow day. Trust me, if you go to Trinity Bellwoods, downtown Toronto, that park is going to be absolutely filthy. I will take you there this summer because it's a fun spot to be. But Kuala Lumpur is very clean, so I'm just going to assume the rest of Malaysia is very clean as well. Good job, Malaysia. Reason number 2 is... Those are my drums. I know, might be controversial, but higher standard of living. I just have to say it. You have a higher standard of living. You have a higher standard of living than we do here in Canada. And I know a comment I got on some of my Malaysia videos is Canada is a G7 country. So you have a higher standing of living. You know, it's a more developed nation. Okay. So Canada is really good at their sales pitch, and go on YouTube and search on like Canada immigration policies and tricking people to move to Canada, because it's all for show. It's all like a song and dance. It's all a little movie you see on TV, but the standard of living here is not great. First of all, rents are extremely high. Taxes are extremely high. If you work in Canada, you make a median wage, like not a super high income and not a super low income. You make a normal wage as like a blue collar employee. You're going to be paying around 40% of your income in tax. Okay. Isn't that crazy? And sales tax is really high. Unless you live in Alberta, sales tax, I don't think they pay sales tax there. Anyways, moving off to the point. It is very expensive to live in Canada. And I'm just going to give a comparison based on a comment I got recently where someone said, hey, you know, these people were having a debate in the comments saying Canada had a better quality of life. And I got a comment from a viewer that is from Malaysia and spent a few years living in Canada and said, hey, I'm going to boil it down to this, is that in Malaysia, you could go out and spend 10 ringgit and get great food, get a full meal for under 10 ringgit. Whereas in Canada, you can't even spend $10 and get a full balanced meal. I mean, maybe you could buy a bag of chips. A bag of chips is like $5 to $7 these days. Or you could go to Dollarama and get a chocolate bar for like $2, $3. But obviously these things aren't nourishing. And the comparison this viewer was making is that these are full meals. So you go out, you know, you get a nasi lemak with some chicken or beef or whatever you like to eat with it. Or, you know, you could get a few things. You could get a pile of food that's nourishing and obviously delicious because it's from Malaysia for 10 ringgit or under. Whereas you honestly can't do that in Canada. Maybe you could go get a hot dog. But bro, like a small slice of pizza. I got pizza the other day for the first time. I've been, I don't really eat like bread too much, when I'm here in Canada. I treat myself when I'm on vacation. But I went out for pizza for the first time in a very long time the other day. I bought a slice of pizza and it came up to $7, okay? For a slice of pizza. So I guess, okay, that's under $10. But that's like 35 ringgit, okay? 35 ringgit for a slice of pizza. And then we're not talking about a fancy pizza place, okay? It wasn't the worst. I hadn't had pizza in a while. I liked it, but it wasn't that great. And I was shocked. Like, they warmed it up for me. It was on the plate, ready to go. And I go to pay and I was like, $7. My mind was blown. Like, I wanted to be like, I don't want this pizza anymore. I don't want to pay $7 for it. So I'm using that example as a quality of life, because I think food is a big part of life because we all need it to survive. And I think that's the best measurement. I mean, you could compare incomes, compare rent, but what I'm saying is, in Malaysia, you could afford to go out and get food. You don't have to cook everything at home. Whereas in Canada, like, you really can't. If you want to go out to a restaurant all the time, then you're basically going to go in debt and probably have to cancel your Netflix and literally do nothing else. And be very careful with your money. Like, that has to be your hobby. Like, going out and eating food, that's your hobby. That's it. Unless you're like, make over $200,000, which I feel like it would still be expensive. Third reason why I want to move to Malaysia, I think it's safer. Okay? I know. Hear me out. Canada has become really, how do I say this? The crime in Canada is skyrocketing. I've lived in Toronto for about 15 years now. And when I first moved here, I felt very safe. And I was downtown the other day, like midday. I'm talking about noon, 1 p.m. And I did not feel safe. I felt very unsafe, in fact. It was a very strange feeling. And I definitely don't feel like that in Malaysia. I felt pretty safe everywhere I went. And especially in the downtown core. If you compare Kuala Lumpur to Toronto, Kuala Lumpur is loads safer, okay? The poverty is like extremely different. Toronto is filled with homeless people and with down and out people and with, I don't know, people like the locals. It's not appropriate to say anymore, but with like people facing drug addictions on the street and people with violent attitudes and violent moods, having outbursts. It's everywhere in almost every neighborhood. My neighborhood, I live midtown, was considered to be like a clean neighborhood, a safer neighborhood. And it's like what downtown was 5 years ago. So there's all of that. And when I was in Kuala Lumpur, I didn't see any of that at all. I know it does exist and there is poverty in Kuala Lumpur and there are homeless, but I think if you saw the homelessness in Toronto versus what you see in Malaysia, I think you'd be shocked. So I feel safer in Kuala Lumpur. And I just feel like the people are nicer. If you're in trouble or need help, like a local in Kuala Lumpur is gonna help you. A local in Malaysia is gonna be like, what's going on? What can I do to help? This is what you need to do. Whereas someone in Toronto, like if you're bleeding out on the street, someone's just going to walk by. They're busy. They don't care. They don't want to get involved. And the laws in Canada are really weird. They're basically like, if someone hurts themselves, if someone's in danger and you help them, you become like legally responsible for them. So if like, suppose someone like trips and breaks their leg and you like go to help them and like, they could like sue you for helping them. Or I'm not a lawyer, but I've read a lot of articles and a lot of stories of weird situations where someone tried to help someone in like, in a situation of violence or like when someone was injured, someone fell, and these people who had kind hearts who tried to help got in big trouble. So now there's this culture in Canada where you kind of just ignore things around you or you don't want to get sued. It's very strange. And it's very toxic. I'm sure if you don't live in Canada and you're hearing this, you're like, wow, this is insane. This is toxic. So I don't want to be around this toxic what have you. And I want to be around the beautiful people of Malaysia